Okay, this is just a help video to guide you through studying for your first unit exam. And I'm not going to go through every single question, but I'll go through a few questions for each section. And what I'll do is I'll break each video up into each page so that the videos aren't really long. Now, if you don't understand how to do a question, you can watch the video again. Okay, let's just kind of start with the simple ones. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these just because most of them are pretty straightforward. I'll just change to a nice blue color here. Okay, on these ones, you're going to need to use your number line. You're allowed to use your number line for this exam. Part of it is just practicing getting used to numbers. Remember that when you look at a number line, if you use a number line system that we started with, you're always going to start with the -2, and that's going to be where you start on the number line. And this will tell you which direction you're going. Plus will be going up, down will be negative. And if you use that idea, you can think about it like a building. So if I'm 2 floors below ground, -2, and I go up 8 floors, I'm going to end up at 6 floors above ground, or +6. For questions that have double signs, always get rid of the signs that are beside each other. So those two signs are beside each other. So those would turn into negative, and then you've got your 3. And the brackets don't have to be written anymore. So your answer here would be -8. Don't combine like these two signs. They're not combining. You would only do that if they were multiplying. So when adding and subtracting numbers, make sure that you only look at the signs that are beside each other. Okay, let's move over. Questions like this one would be the same idea. Again, you have a double sign right here, not with this one. So you leave this -2 and turn that into +5. And this is asking you if you're 2 floors below ground and you go up 5 floors, you would end up at a positive number, a positive integer. It would be 3. Okay, so those are pretty straightforward. Let's kind of move on to the next part, which is fractions. If you're reducing your fractions, and for all of them, I'm going to say it's okay if you leave them as improper fractions. I don't really care. I'd rather you actually practice with improper. Your goal is to try to make the fraction the smallest. And I use that little 2, 3, 4, and 5 rule, which means start with 2. If 2 doesn't work, then use 3, then use 4, then use 5. Or you can just look at the number and think, what's the biggest number I can divide out of both of them? And this one would be 4. But if you don't see that, then you can just do this. Start with 2. 2 will work. So you'd get 4 divided by 2 is 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And then you can do it one more time. So you get 1/3. But you could have divided 4 straight from both of them and got the same answer. But again, it doesn't matter. You'll always get the right answer, even if you have to do a little bit more work. For bigger ones, I would start with the number 2. Most of them will work with the number 2. In special cases like this one, if they both have 0 at the end, it means that you can get 10 out of it. So this would immediately turn into 2/3. And because there's 2 negatives, always, always, always cancel your negatives. I will take marks off if you leave them as 2 negatives. Because remember, a negative and negative will make a positive. So if you write positive 2/3 or just 2/3, you would get full marks for that. Do the same thing here. Whoa, that didn't work out too well. Do the same thing here. Get rid of the double negatives. Here you can't. You'd be left with the negative up top, and this would turn into -1/3. Here divide by 2, here divide by 2, and here you could divide by 2 and work your way down. Section 3. If you forget what to do for section 3, you can always look back at your guide. My little rule was use the carousel rule or the Ferris wheel rule, and that was multiply and then add. But leave the negative sign. So if there's a negative sign there, you're still going to end up with a negative fraction. And just multiply the numbers. So 2 times 2 would be 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. And underneath, you would just get 2. So your answer would be -5/2. Here you would get 3 times 3 is 9. 9 plus 2 is 11. 11/3. This one, same idea. You want to make sure you leave your negative. 4 times 4 is 16. Add 1 is 17/4. And then the final one, section 4, people always have troubles with this. If you have troubles with dividing, always think about it as the opposite of multiplying. In other words, you can always think what times 2 will equal 11. So I try to think of something that would multiply by 2 to give me 11, but not go over. So like 6 wouldn't work because 6 times 2 is 12. So 5 would work because 5 times 2 is 10. And then you write the leftover on top. So leftover goes there. And then you write the same bottom. So you'd have 5.5. Here, because there's a negative, you will also have a negative on your answer, so just leave it. The biggest number that could go into 5 to make 23, well, if I used 5, it would be 25, and if I used 4, it would be 20. So I'm going to use 4, and the remainder will be 3, because 4 times 5 is 20, and I'm left with 3, and the bottom stays the same. Now on this one, I'm going to do this question just because people are going to write negative here, but it's not. Because right away when we see a double sign, cancel it. So you should be starting with 13 over 2. So when you do this, the biggest number you could choose would be 6, because 6 times 2 is 12. The remainder is 1, and then you have the same bottom. So I hope this helps. This is the kind of a guide for page 1. The next video will be page 2.